I got a merit-based raise, was consistently told that I was doing incredibly well, that I was learning really fast, was asked by somebody 3 levels above me to work on a project with him specifically. At that time, I started to have more frequent seizures, and I usually can manage them quite well, and even if I have them, don't let it interfere too much with my work. I
Yeah.
went to HR and I let them know that, asked them, could I get an accommodation to bring my dog into work? Immediate response without any hesitation was,
No.
what? You've been fine up to this point. Why do you need it now? The accommodation request
Okay.
basically didn't even get processed at all because it was just assumed that I was lying. So I immediately got put on a performance improvement plan within days. In the performance improvement plan, a lot of it was about, just very vague things. It was like basically an impossible to meet performance improvement
Uh-huh.
plan. And the goal, of course, as many people know on both sides of the table, that the goal is to manage the person out. So they're not supposed to be achievable.
Welcome back to Living with FASD. Today I am joined by Julie Harris, who has a remarkable story for us and also some fantastic resources on just a lot of knowledge about how to advocate for ourselves and what we need in the workplace. So, Julie, I'm so glad I stumbled into you on LinkedIn and I just, as I was sharing with you a few minutes ago, I couldn't find you again when I was looking for you. And I find that so odd. But at least I saw you when I needed to see you. So for that, I'm very grateful. And I'm so glad you could join us on the podcast today. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am happy to be here. And it's funny, we stumble upon what we need when we need it. Oftentimes, that's how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, that is how it works. So I had reached out to you because I saw your story on LinkedIn about some workplace discrimination. And I know that's something that people in the FASD community struggle with. And really any neurodiverse space, we face this issue a lot when our disabilities are invisible, right? Or at least hidden, unless people know what to look for, they often don't see much of anything.
Yes.
So yeah, can you start maybe by sharing with the audience, like, what's your story? What was that all about?
Well, the story of the discrimination and
Hmm.
accommodation experience in the workplace. So I had started a job and learned quickly. 2.5 months in, I got a merit-based raise, was consistently told that I was doing incredibly well, that I was learning really fast. They're surprised at how well I'm doing. I had already started to be given many of the most high visibility projects. I was a program manager at the time. And I had
Okay.
started to be given many of the highest visibility projects, was asked by somebody 3 levels above me to work on a project with him specifically. And then at that time, I started to have more frequent seizures. And I usually can manage them quite well. And even if I have them, don't let it interfere too much with my work life. Mine
Hmm.
happen to be mostly at the nighttime, and I can manage them fairly well throughout my life. Well, started to have more frequent ones, and in ways people who have seizures know that sometimes it's not predictable where and when they happen. Sometimes there are things you can control, sometimes there aren't. I have a dog who recognizes when I have a seizure, lets me know when I'm going to have a seizure, so I am safer with my dog around.
Yeah.
So I went to HR and I let them know that, ask them, could I get an accommodation to bring my dog into work? And the immediate response without any hesitation was,
No.
what? You've been fine up to this point. Why do you need it now?
Yeah.
And that question asked by somebody in good
Yeah.
faith could have not been a bad question. It could have been like, oh, huh, that's curious. What makes you need it now? And it could have been a friendly, albeit not the best worded question, but it could have been nice. But this person, it was very obvious that it was, I believe that you're lying. This doesn't seem real. And then the follow up questions did show that. Well, you look fine, you do your job well. How can somebody, and this is something that I know so many people experience
Yeah.
who are competent, who do their job well. Well, you do your job well. How could you really need an accommodation? And so it seems like I just want to bring in my pet dog to work.
Yeah. That is so, I'm resonating with this so much because I had to jump through so many hoops to bring my service dog to work, when she was placed with me in 2012. And then at one point, there was a shift in upper managers, and all of a sudden, it was, you need to supply an air freshener just in case we don't want our office smelling like dogs. No, I think HR has to provide that. I it just went on and on and on. It was like, what do I do with that?
Right? Isn't it? It's
Right?
it's so ridiculous how difficult HR can
Yeah.
make, even HR who in some ways can be very supportive and friendly at companies who typically HR is known to be friendly. It's so interesting how you bring up disability and accommodations, and especially ones that, I mean, it's true for visible, for the more apparent disabilities as well. It's just you get that right up front, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with a lot of that right up front. And then
Yeah.
the ones that aren't as apparent, all of a sudden, they're not supportive anymore. They start to treat
Yeah.
you like, I mean, it's 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 wild. Well, which we all know it's wild only because it shouldn't be that way, but
Yeah.
it's incredibly common.
Yeah. No, I had to talk with the clients that they assigned me. I had to talk with them ahead of time before the assignment was permanent and make sure it would be okay for me to bring my dog into their home because they have the say so. That's not a public space. And I had one family tell me, oh, yeah, no problem. And I was on my way to their house to do the first adoption assessment, pre-adoption assessment. And they were like, they called and said, no, you can't bring a dog to our home. I said, then I will have you switch to a different social worker. And I got so much grief over that. And because all of a sudden it was so inconvenient. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And the client said, well, just leave her at home. No, that's not an option. Well, people do fine all the time. You just check your sugar more often. No,
Right.
no.
As if you don't actually need the dog. Just leave your dog at
Yeah,
home. Like
yeah,
that's not how
yeah.
it works.
Yeah, she was amazing though. If I had to go out in the field, because social workers, we spend so much time out in the field. And she was so far ahead of the technology at the time. She alerted 45 minutes before the technology would about
Wow.
impending lows. Their noses are just amazing. And
Yes.
if she knew my sugar was going to crash, she would refuse to get in my car. It's like, you can take yourself out, Mom. You're not taking me with you.
This isn't safe for me. I'm not getting in there with you.
Right? So, all right,
Yeah.
I really took your story way off track. So that tends to happen when service dogs come up. So,
Well, it's all related. It's not off
yeah,
track. It's just
yeah,
a little curve in the road.
right? Detours can be at least entertaining
Yep.
sometimes. All right, so yeah, so what did you do with all that? You
Well,
were wanting to start having, what's your dog's name?
Crash.
Crash. Good name. Good name.
Yes.
So you were wanting Crash to come to work with you, and they were making you jump through hoops. Yeah. What
Well, it's
happened?
interesting. They weren't even making me jump through hoops. They just started treating me like I was lying. So the accommodation request
Okay.
basically didn't even get processed at all because it was just assumed that I was lying. So I immediately got put on a performance improvement plan.
Whoa.
Immediately. I mean, within days.
Yeah.
And in the performance improvement plan, a lot of it was about, I mean, just very vague things. And so it was like basically an impossible to meet plan, performance improvement
Mm-hmm.
plan. And the goal, of course, as many people know on both sides of the table, that the goal is to manage the person out. And so they're not supposed to be achievable. Well,
Mm-hmm.
during our meetings, I asked, can you please give me specific things? They gave me some specific goals that were, even for as good as I was at my job, very, very high to reach, setting me up to fail. Well, I met
Mm-hmm.
them. I met those goals. Then what happened?
Right
I
away.
got put on a performance improvement plan immediately again. Immediately again, a second one. Immediately.
Wow.
And so the accommodation process isn't even occurring.
Yeah.
I'm getting put on a PIP, got put on another PIP a month later because I passed the first one. So
Mm-hmm.
a month later, which was how long the first PIP was. And then that one, it was interesting because the first one was about communication. The second one was about meeting deadlines, which at that point I had not missed a deadline at all. Not one single deadline had I missed. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I made a post about this on LinkedIn just, I think, last week. But when I kept meeting deadlines, what are they going to do? There's this claim that I don't meet deadlines. I'm going to pass another PIP. So seizures were getting worse. My doctor was like, you can't, this isn't sustainable. You have more stress now. I recommend you take some time off work. So I took a 2 week medical leave.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I had a really big project that was due that had, 13 different people working on the project team from all different departments. And it was set to complete during the time that I should be off on my 2 week leave. Well, that's no big deal. As any program manager knows, if things are set up right and it's near the end, it should go smoothly and you have things in place. Everyone knows their job. I had
Mm-hmm.
a program manager who could overlook it and make sure that things were going smoothly, but the project team, incredibly competent, capable, quality, it was going to end perfectly fine. Well, a few days into my leave, I get a text message from a coworker that was a screenshot of an email from my boss to this person who's on a completely different team and said, you need to stop this work immediately. Julie needs to complete this project on her own when she returns. Okay,
Wow.
weird, but fine. And everyone knew that she was starting to treat me differently. It was very obvious. I was being treated very differently from her at this point. Well,
Mm-hmm.
then what did she do? She used that missed deadline because she told the whole project team to stop working on it. She used that missed deadline as evidence that I missed
Against you.
deadlines. Isn't that funny? But like she put it in email. So there's evidence of it.
Boy, a lawyer could just eat her for lunch.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't need a lawyer. I went to the EEOC by myself, but yeah, absolutely.
How did that? How?
The EEOC,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I learned everything that I learned. I didn't, at this point, I was like, all this feels kind of wrong. So I started Googling things, looking up what are my rights. It's the first I really learned how in depth the disability employment law actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that you could file with the EEOC. So I did. The first step in the EEOC is always mediation. They offer mediation to both sides, and both of us agreed to it. So my mediator was incredible. Called and let me know what to expect moving forward and said the day of mediation or on this whatever next time that we're going to talk, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to talk about the past,
Mm-hmm.
15 to talk about what you want, and then we're in the present, so what the future, and then we're in the present, and that's when mediation starts. And he said, don't go over 15 minutes. It's only 15 minutes. The past is not the most important thing. I know that it feels most important to you, but that's not the most important thing. The future, how we can get this resolved. So you have 15 minutes. So I wrote everything. I made sure that I had everything. I rehearsed it. I timed myself speaking quickly. I timed myself speaking slowly. I was like, he made it so clear that it's only 15 minutes. I have to make sure that I get this all out in
Yeah.
15 minutes. Well, when you hear something like they said that I missed deadlines and I hadn't missed any yet, so then my manager, while I was away, told the project team to stop working on it and then used that as evidence. And he said, wait, she did what?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, and it was actually unbelievable because no, and then he would ask, well, do you have evidence of that? Yeah, I do. Yes, I have an email. I can send it to you right now. And I didn't know much of the process at this time, so I'm just thinking this is just a normal human to human conversation. And it was in some ways, but a lot of what he asked was to validate my or to test my credibility. Do you have evidence? Oh yeah, I can send it to you right now. So not only was I saying I have it, but I was preemptively offering it up, and it was very clear that I was organized, that I really had this evidence. So anyway, the 15 minutes that he made very clear would not be longer in any circumstances turned into an hour and a half because of him, because of his questions. He was asking so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the beginning, when I said the number that I wanted, and that was after I had talked to a lawyer, and she said, I can't take this case, but I would recommend you don't go in, lower than this number. So I said that number, which was a few $100,000. And he just kind of laughed at first and was like, no, 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 you need to lower your expectations. The average is 10,000. The average settlement amount is 10,000. I said, yeah, I know, but I have a good case. And he was like, everyone thinks they have a good case. Well, then when he heard it, he stopped pushing back on my number. When he actually heard it and realized, oh, shoot, like this, and who knows, he didn't. Anyway, so then we get into mediation. On the other side of the team was a legal team at the company that I worked for at the time that, I was still employed while I was going through this. So
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to still have a job, to still have pay, to still have insurance, to
Yeah.
still have all of this at the time because they knew at that point if they fired me, it would be very clear retaliation. Well, so in mediation, they came in offering 1 month of pay, which for me at the time was, I don't know, 7 or 8,000 or something. I don't know, something like, or 3 weeks of pay. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was such an insignificant number for
Mm-hmm.
what it had been. So we went back and forth
Yeah, because
with
they
the.
caused detriments to your health.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And
Seizures at this point got so much worse. And it got to the point, and I said to the mediator, I said, and I have missed deadlines now. And he's like, oh, yeah, I believe it. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. And so the mediator, they're well versed in this, they're trained. And I was like, at this point, I am missing deadlines because my health is bad. I'm stressed. I'm fighting the discrimination and retaliation while also trying to do my job and being more scrutinized than anybody else on my team. Anyway, it ended with 60, like with about 64,000 in cash, and then some other things that ended about 130 or 140, something like that total, with all of it added together, all of the different
mm-hmm.
benefits that I got. That's what I ended up
Mm-hmm.
getting. And now that I'm actually saying this out loud, you sign a
NDA.
non-disclosure, and my mediator said, well, as long as you don't specifically like give specific names, talk about the specific thing, like you can talk about your experience in generalities. Is the amount specific, and that's a question. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up, ask a lawyer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's how it ended, but it ended with like hours back and forth, and then they never got to a number that I was comfortable with. And then, like, I don't know, 4 days later, the mediator called me on New Year's Eve one day, and not New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving Eve, the day before Thanksgiving, and said they came back with an offer. This isn't reopening mediation, this is just basically a take it or leave it, do you want it or not. And so I thought mediation was over and we were going to have to go to the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the settlement actually came in, which still was lower than I would have liked, but to have it over and to not have the stress anymore, I accepted it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people would really have to balance that. I've had several thoughts strike me as you relate all this. And the first is like, oh, it really sounds as if, mediators are supposed to be the neutral arbiters.
Yes.
Doesn't sound like he was. It
So,
sounds like he was more on the company side than the EEOC side, right?
well, maybe, but I really liked him, and he did seem neutral in the sense that
Okay.
you're going to both sides and telling both sides the flaws in their case. You're going to both sides and
Okay.
telling both sides. So he did it to the other side as well. Now, I
Gotcha.
don't know how much you know about the mediation process, but I wasn't ever face to face, or this was over Zoom and phone calls, but I was never in the same even Zoom meeting or on the same phone call as the legal team for the company. It was
Mm-hmm.
always me
Mm-hmm.
talking to the mediator. The mediator would
Okay.
relay anything relevant to the other party. He would say where I stood at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
then come back to me and would just go back and forth.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there were times when he would come back and say, um, I told them, I asked them if they had ever even met you or talked to you. And when they said no, I said it's very obvious because the person that you are describing is not at all the person who I'm talking to. And this is where I got to know some of the inner workings. And ever since then, I've met EEOC mediators and investigators and people who actually do this and learned parts of their trainings. And he, during our first call, he interrupted me a lot and he told me that I was wrong. And he didn't seem, I didn't think that he was rude at all. It just seemed like he was a more direct, get to the point kind of
Mm-hmm.
person, which I don't mind at all. But I find out later that he was doing all of that to try to get a rise out of me because he had been told from the employer that I was angry, that I was aggressive, that I was reactive, that
Wow.
um which I'm an intense person, so it's not to say that I've never raised my voice, but what they're describing is this off the wall, cannot control herself at all person.
Psycho employee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he, during the mediation, he came back to me and relayed to me that he asked them if they had ever met me and told them the person you're describing and the person that you think you're up against is not the person you're up against. I have tried to get her to react. I've been incredibly rude to her. I've been dismissive to her. I've interrupted her, and she has yet to react.
Yeah.
She maintains her composure. She's respectful. She's well spoken. And he said, quite frankly, judges and juries will love her. I don't think that you understand, and so he wasn't on,
Yeah. Yeah.
he, neutrality isn't going to seem neutral if you don't understand how it works and if you don't
Yes.
know that they're doing it to both sides. So he's telling
Yeah.
them where their case is weak. He's telling me where my case is weak. He's telling me where I need to give in a little bit. He's telling them where they need to give in a little bit. That's the point of a mediator. They're trying to get both parties to
Mm-hmm.
come to the middle. And
Yeah.
so at first, he's not wrong to say, well, you need to bring your expectation down because the average is 10,000. That is the truth for most people. And I did get less than I went in, but not even close to what he,
Mm-hmm.
originally said. But once he heard my story and once he saw that I had the
Had
evidence and
proof.
once he saw that they were the ones that couldn't back up their side and I could back up my side,
Mm-hmm.
then and at one point he told me, he said, you have to think about if this goes to trial and she will be a great witness. She is the ideal witness. She is the witness that lawyers love to have. And that was basically the last thing. And then they ended up coming back. They still didn't come back with something that was
Mm-hmm.
reasonable to me, but that was basically the last thing. And they must have taken that seriously because, 4 days later,
Yeah.
they come back with
Yeah.
another offer.
Yeah. So, and during this time you kept working there, did they at least change your supervisor?
No.
So,
Well,
really?
here's something that's funny. So they didn't. And then a few weeks before mediation, I started reporting directly to my supervisor. And I was like, I told everyone in my life, my family, my coworkers, I was like, this is so good. This supervisor, he's more direct. He doesn't really add meaning to things. We communicate well. Some people think that he's mean and, an ass, but I actually really like how he communicates. And so this is
Yeah.
going to be so good. He's just going to take what I say. Literally, it's going to be so great. When I started working with him, he would take what I said to my boss, so he was basically now just an intermediary. And he was
Mm-hmm.
trusting what she was saying. And when she was saying that I was doing all of these horrible things, missing all these deadlines that I didn't miss,
Mm-hmm.
he's believing her. And he's taking what I say to her. And then she's
Mm-hmm.
saying, no, that's never happened. So it wasn't as if I was actually reporting to him. It was that I was going to him. And because to him, he thought that it was just personality clashes.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
just needed to be the intermediary to have better communication.
Yeah.
He didn't realize, and she's still employed there to this day. She's had a lot of other issues with a lot of other people. People have called me and said, hey, I filed with the EEOC because she's problematic to me too. But
Wow.
anyway, so they never changed.
Yeah.
They just thought that they gave me someone else to communicate with because we communicated differently.
Well, at some point, hopefully, they'll take another look at her because she's costing them a lot of money. If
Hopefully,
there are
but
several EEOC cases with
yeah,
one supervisor in common. That's
yep.
so. Tell me, we probably should back up to the beginning. What? So you wanted to bring Crash to work with you
Yes,
because
yes.
don't eat my chair. He's still a puppy. He eats everything.
Hilarious.
I don't have a single piece of furniture that has not been chewed upon.
Wow.
Anyway, at least he's on the floor. If he hurls his cookies, it
Yes,
won't be on my lap or the keyboard.
yes.
So what led to your seizure disorder? For the audience, like, have you had medical issues that or disability issues that you've always struggled with, or how does that play into things?
Growing up, as far as I know, there were some things, but they were just some oddities that were like, oh, that's just Julie. Like I passed out a lot, and it was okay. Well, she passes out, and then it was just like, oh, passing out's not a super abnormal thing, so they didn't look into it a whole lot. And then and by they I mean doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And you just try to avoid passing out. And later,
As if anyone enjoys that.
right, right, right. So one day I was visiting my brother who just got in a motorcycle wreck. I was visiting him in the hospital and waiting for my parents to come. Me and my sister lived the closest, so we were in the hospital the
You got there
soonest.
first.
And nobody knew how he was going to do. I don't know if it was like if to the level of do we know that he's going to make it or not, but we didn't know how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents were on the way, but they're about an hour away going in to visit, and the doctors are wheeling him in, and motorcycle. I mean, he had a helmet, but the helmet was like cracked. He was wearing a
Ooh.
biking jacket, and it went up, and so his whole back, like there was no skin on his back, and he had a lot of broken ribs and stuff. And so
Oh.
they wheeled him in, and I don't remember any of this. This is all told to me, but they wheeled him in, and I just passed out. And so I passed out, hit my head on the floor, and
Was
hit
it
my
because
head.
you saw something? I mean, because
That's the guess.
we always joke about men. They see blood, they pass out.
Yes. Yep. Yep. So that's probably what happened for me.
Okay. Saw your brother in a state that no one should see their brother.
Yeah. Yep. So I hit my head in such a way that later on, any doctors who saw it, who saw my scans in the years after, just to be brought up to date to where I was, they would always ask me, well, what did you fall off of? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, what were you standing on? My feet? No, and I wasn't trying to be an ass. That was me and my brain injured state at this point, And so they were like, no, but what were you standing on? What were your feet on? Floor? Okay, yeah, but what level? And I was like, I don't know. And I'm not thinking that they're asking, you must have fallen out of a window or you must have fallen off of something high. I just passed out. And then finally it gets to the point where they're like, well, no, how far from the ground were you? I mean, just my height. I just fell to the ground. And then every single time they were surprised because the damage to my head shouldn't have been that bad,
Yeah.
So I passed out. Instead of crumpling to the ground, I just fell straight back, and all that power went to my head. Had subdural hematoma, epidural hematomas, and had a midline shift that was supposed to require surgery, but my heart kept stopping, so they didn't take me. It wasn't stable enough for them to take me to surgery, which was fine. I didn't end up having brain surgery, which is great, and it did go down on its own, but then was in a coma for a little bit and then in the hospital for the next 3 months. And so as a result of that,
Julie.
seizures, forgetfulness, amnesia, so that's what led to it all.
Yeah. So you've had a seizure disorder ever since?
Correct.
But that's not related to your history of passing out.
Correct.
Did they ever determine what that was about?
Well, possibly. They did later. We did a lot of tests trying to figure things out. They found that there's a hole in my heart, and that could potentially be it. So they repaired that a few years after my brain injury, and I still pass out. It's not as bad, but I still pass out. Now it's just It could be an overactive vagus nerve.
Yeah.
It could be a myriad of things, but
Right.
I
Yeah.
just eat
So
a lot of
so how
salt.
yeah. You eat a lot of salt. How does that help? I'm just curious.
It makes good question. It just makes it so that I'm less likely to pass out. It's
Okay.
good
So
question. I should
do you
look
run
into
through
the
life with low
mechanics of
blood
it.
pressure?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the salt
Very
would
low
help with
blood
that.
pressure,
Yeah.
oftentimes. But it's not, but
And
they know that
that
that's not the reason, but it exacerbates it. It is a factor.
yeah. And then stress of course takes its toll.
Yes.
And it exacerbates the seizures.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this whole thing is what, before we get into the meat of disability law and all that jazz, I'm just so curious, and I'm sure the audience is too. After your settlement, how long did
Yes.
you work there?
Oh no, usually almost always I'm guessing that it's always, but I am saying almost because I don't know certainly. If you come to an agreement with the company and you're still
Mm-hmm.
employed there, part of the agreement is that
Is
you
to part
separate.
ways. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I no longer, as of the signing of that, I no longer
Gotcha.
worked there after the mediation. I was there a couple more days, which was surprising to some people who knew I had the mediation. But
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden, one day, I'm just not coming back because we
Yeah.
signed paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, and here's the crux of the episode, I think, is diving into what all we need to be aware of in terms of disability law. That's quite the investigative journey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So what did you learn? What should the rest of us know about our rights for accommodations?
Yes. So I will start with the most relevant thing for many people. And the most relevant thing in that situation was that you have a legal right to an interactive process, what's called the interactive process when you request an accommodation. And the interactive process is where you and the company work together to identify what is actually needed and an effective solution. So the effective accommodation that works for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an option. Absolutely 100% is necessary in every single situation.
Okay.
An example that I give is if you go in and you work at a zoo and you ask if you can bring in your service elephant. Well, a service elephant is pretty obviously not reasonable and it will cause undue hardship, which I'll get into
Yeah.
later what exactly that means. But even then, it is the responsibility of the employer to engage and say, okay, well, we can't allow that. We can't have an elephant walking around, even though it's a zoo. That's not safe for animals. It's not safe for our patrons. That's not safe for our employees. However, what are the limitations that you experience, and what else can we do that could help you do the essential functions of your job? And so there
Mm-hmm.
should be that discussion to
Yeah.
identify other effective, and the key word is effective, accommodations. So that's not an option. If any employer ever just flat out denies, which was the effective denial on my situation, they never said no, but they never engaged.
Mm-hmm.
That is already something that is a violation of the ADA. Now, I'm not a lawyer. This is just from my experience. This is
Yeah.
from, I'm not a
Good
lawyer, but
disclosure.
yeah.
Good disclosure.
So, number one, you have a right to
Yeah.
an interactive process.
Yeah.
Number two, you have a right to an effective accommodation, so long as it doesn't cause undue hardship. Now, I'm going to start with the effective accommodation. A lot of people, employers especially, think that, well, we don't have to give you what you want, which is true. They don't have to give you what you want. But because they think they don't have, because they know that they don't have to give you what they want, they think that they can give you whatever they want, even if it's not
Mm-hmm.
equally effective. So, something that I see really commonly is somebody who says, I'm really overstimulated in the workplace. I need to work from home. And they say,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, what overstimulates you? Is it sound? Well, just wear noise canceling
Mm-hmm.
headphones. Well, sure, that takes away one aspect of simulation in a little bit, and it doesn't even take it away, it minimizes it a
Right.
touch,
Right.
but it doesn't remove everything else. It's not equally effective as working from home in most
Yeah.
scenarios. Some scenarios it might be, but that's not equally effective. So you have a right to an equally effective or just an effective accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a right to keep pushing back and communicating to them, hey, this isn't effective for X, Y, and Z reason.
Yeah.
And can we rethink this? Can we continue? And phrasing that I always find works really, really well here is to say why it's not equally effective for you, why it's not going to resolve the issue, and then end by saying, I look forward to continuing the discussion and identifying effective accommodations that work for all parties, because that shows
Yeah.
your collaborativeness, but
Yes.
it also is you pushing back until you get what's effective.
Yeah.
And then to undue hardship. This is something that's misunderstood a lot and
Mm-hmm.
by all parties, by HR, by management, by employees. I hear a lot of times, well, they're just going to claim undue hardship and they get to claim that whenever they want. So there's no point in even asking. Well,
Mm.
no, it's up to the employer they have to prove undue hardship. Now, that's of course only if it goes to court, but it's their responsibility. They're the ones who have the burden of proving undue hardship. And
Mm.
undue hardship has a very specific definition in the law, which again, I'm not a lawyer, but it's a significant difficulty or expense. And the expense is not just, oh, we don't have budget for it. We don't have budget for this small team, especially if it's a $1 billion company or even a multi-$100 million company. It's going to be very, very, very unlikely that
Yeah.
anything when it comes to cost, especially cost under $500, is going to ever rise to the level of undue hardship. But then what about the significant difficulty part?
Yeah.
Significant difficulty really comes down to, does it fundamentally change the work of the company? Does it fundamentally change how things are done? Does it
Mm-hmm.
require significant changes like having an elephant, a service elephant, come into the
Yeah.
zoo? Well, you'd have to rebuild everything. That's significant difficulty, but it's also health risks, right? Health
Yeah.
risks would be an undue hardship. Most accommodations are free. The ones that
Mm-hmm.
aren't, most of them are under $250. They're not going to rise to the level of undue hardship. And undue hardship is not, I'll list a few things that it's not from EEOC guidance, from various legal cases, but it is not, well, we haven't done that before. It's not, it's against,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because this
policy.
is the way we've always done it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
Not
remember
undue hardship.
when I first got into the service dog world, I remember reading a lot of cases about people using miniature horses as service animals.
Yes.
And a lot of the pushback against that. And you know, I can understand that. I don't think I would be very happy seeing a horse in a restaurant. I think I would naturally be very surprised to see a horse fitting in an airplane.
Yes.
Um, but so balance issues, I'm assuming that's why someone would choose a service animal that large would be bad. I struggle to grasp that, but that's just me and my limited experience. Dog was more than enough for me.
Agreed.
But oh my gosh, so I got a lot of pushback at work, from my immediate team, nothing but supportive. They were fantastic. I remember at one point going to the finalization of an adoption, and this sweet little girl, I adored her. She adored me, adored the dog. But anytime she had been pulled out of preschool, it was because she was being moved from home to home to home, right? And that
Yeah.
happens a lot of times for neurodevelopmental kids, neurodivergent kids. You know, foster parents just aren't trained, and it just ends up in repeated disruptions. So the day before her adoption, her preschool class had a party for her and said, "We'll see you later." She thought she was going to be moved again,
Oh,
and she shut down.
yeah.
And I mean, she had been looking forward to the adoption. She picked out her outfit. And even when her mom was putting this very special dress on her, She just was so sure she was being moved. And court had never been a good thing for her. And she
Yes.
was just so shut down at the courthouse. I found her mom and I'm like, where's your daughter? And she was down on the floor underneath the seats.
Yeah.
And I just said, Saley, take care of her. And my dog got next to her, and then there she was sitting on the floor with her arm around my dog. And it just brought her back to a place where she could enjoy the rest of the day. But, they serve such a multitude of benefits for, aside from becoming an office mascot
Yes. Yes.
unofficially. But, it's amazing the pushback I get in the community. When a disability is invisible, there's pushback against accommodations. I don't know how many people would say, are you training this dog for some little kid? No, she works for me. And it's amazing to me. Kids are so much better than grown-ups when it comes to how to interact with service animals, but how to respect people that have needs.
Yes.
That's one thing I think the schools these days are getting right. But I got a lot more pushback from the grown-ups. So what are some of the other rights that we have in terms of our disability rights? So effective accommodations,
You got me
interactive.
distracted with the
I'm so
foster
sorry.
story because I fostered and I had two girls, and I it's my only regret in life that I didn't end up adopting them. I was planning to, but I had
Mm-hmm.
this whole, oh, but I'm single and I'll probably never be married because it's just not a goal, or I don't care, and they won't have another parent. And in my mind at the time, that was so significant and important. And the judge said, hold on, we're going to go off the record for a second. And when I told her this, they were about to be moved to a permanent family who was going to adopt them. And she said, I don't usually see changes this significant with kids. This is great. You have done amazing with them. You can do it alone. You've proven it because you've done it. What you're saying, I understand it and I respect it. And also, basically, you're wrong, and she was so right, and I just didn't see it at the time, and I was fairly young. I was only 27, which for that to me, like, it was my
Right.
brain injury too. Like, it had only happened 7 years prior, so it wasn't even like I was at
Yeah.
27. Anyway, so I was just thinking about that, where it's my only regret in life that I didn't adopt them.
Oh,
But court, yeah, and then so they got moved, and then you're talking about how sad it was that she thought that she was going to get moved, and
I'm sorry.
because of,
I didn't mean
it's
to
okay.
trigger you.
It's okay. Nobody can ever know, but
Yeah.
it's something I've basically come to terms with, and it's way worse or harder for the kids
Yeah.
than for me.
Yeah.
But you never want to put that on somebody, and that you are the reason for somebody's trauma, that you didn't stay in their life, that you didn't, Anyway, rights.
Yeah.
So a right to,
Yeah. So, people used to, because I don't have biological children either. And, people are like, oh, but you have so many kids in your life, right? As a social worker. Yeah, that's just not the same. It's just not the same.
yep,
It's
it's
good that
not,
people smile when I come, but yeah, it's not the same.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. So, what else did you learn in your journey because of all this?
Well, I know the question partially is about the rights and stuff, but really I've learned that this isn't rare, and that many companies do this
Yeah.
intentionally. Some companies genuinely don't know the law, they don't know the ADA very well, they don't know employment law very well,
Mm-hmm.
but many do, and they only treat you the way that they do because they know that you likely do not know your rights. And so
Yeah.
the biggest, most significant change that I see give more positive results is using language that is in the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act,
Yeah.
using language that is in that, showing. that you know your rights, and you can do that in a very professional, collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
not aggressive, because I was always accused of being aggressive in my communication. You can do it in ways that are very um, that aren't going to be perceived that way, yet
Yeah.
still garner the respect from HR, from the legal team,
Mm-hmm.
because once you show them that you know your rights, they treat you completely differently. They only can get away, companies get away with treating employees so poorly because they do not know their rights. And that's the biggest thing that I'm working on changing
Yeah.
is
So
not
how are you
only,
doing that?
well, for 5 years, I've been doing it manually, helping people one by one, which is not the most, it's effective for the individual, but it's not effective for the grand scheme of things. So I recently
Right.
built a tool, and it will be an app. Right now, it's just a web based thing. It takes a lot of effort to get it into like the Apple Store and the Google Store. And so I'm working on that. But I built a tool that it's basically like the TurboTax of employment, right? Starting with reasonable accommodation. So you go in, you give information about your scenario, you answer, the tool asks the relevant questions. So you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
know, you don't have to study your rights, you don't have to know those things. It
Oh,
asks you the
yes.
right questions and then pops out a template to
Yeah.
communicate to your employer, whatever your stage is. And it
Yes.
also has little question marks like, want to learn more? Why do we ask this question? If it flags something that could potentially be retaliation, it will say something like, remember that retaliation is this. If your company could do this, that's potential retaliation. It'll tell you it's not a
Mm-hmm.
legal tool, it's just
Mm-hmm.
something that really helps you know the rights that are relevant
Yeah.
to you at the
And
right time. And then if you do
communicate it
need a lawyer,
effectively. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And you get really good results. People who use this tool or who use me, which is the same, I basically put myself into
Yeah.
a tool. If you start with it, I have a 92% accommodation request approval rate where,
Wow.
yeah, I'm like,
That's
this is effective, it's
fantastic,
good.
Julie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
That is
really,
fantastic.
yeah. When
So how can people reach you?
they can on LinkedIn,
Okay.
which we finally connected there.
Yes.
On LinkedIn at earnestemployee.com, ERNEST employee.com, which is where I'm launching this July 1st. I have
Okay.
done the first cohort of users and improved it, and I'm launching to the whole group June 1st. And you can sign up for a wait list there, and then email, which
Mm-hmm.
I'll give to you and you can put in the notes as
It'll be
well.
in the
But
show
those are how
notes.
people,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. I'll definitely put those links into show notes. Have you written a book or anything like that?
Oh, I have. I wrote a book called I forget these things. There's so many
Honestly, peeps,
things.
I did not know, but being an author myself, it's a question I asked.
That's funny. That's a story too. How that even it came about because of LinkedIn, because of me talking about
Okay.
things on LinkedIn.
Okay.
A editor reached out to me and asked if I wanted to write a book. But the book is called Boldly Belong: The Power of
Oh.
Being You in a Disabling Society.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'm it came completely unexpected.
Yeah. Your book is available
Anywhere.org, which is where I typically refer people because it supports small
indie
bookstores.
authors. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
But
Okay.
anywhere books are sold, you can find it. Maybe not in bookstores, but
Yeah.
online, you'll be able to
Okay.
find it fairly anywhere.
So, and the book helps people by educating them on disability rights, on how to identify accommodations.
No, not. It's I could have done that, and looking back, part of me was like that would have been the more successful book, but because that's what I talked about. But it's more about all of the effects of not getting the accommodations that you need and all of the judgment and stigma and shame that you live through as a
Yes.
disabled person,
Yes.
and where you're not accepted, and especially when it's something that's not apparent, though it's
Mm-hmm.
just as relevant for those that are a parent, but it goes through unlearning all of the things that we thought that we had to be in the world. So shame, stigma,
Yeah.
people pleasing, perfectionism, a fear of being seen, hyper independence, all of those things.
All the
And then like
shoulds
how
in
to
life.
be,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about ableism for a few minutes. It seems like,
Okay.
that's a word that gets tossed around a lot.
Yes. Yes.
How do you address that in is it in the book? Is it in the work that you do with around, advocating for rights at work or, all right, hey, quit pulling on my headphone cords. You got to go bye bye. That was George.
Hi, George.
Okay. So yeah, ableism. How often do you interact with people around that?
That's built into everything I do. I also speak. I do speaker engagement. So if your company or ERG or anything wants a speaker, I do that.
Hint, hint,
But
hint.
hint, hint, big, not hint, blatant request. I do, it's rooted in everything that I do and including in my own thoughts because I don't know that ableism in this society is something that anybody can ever get free of completely, even in our own. I do it. I'm ableist to myself very frequently, judging myself for needing rest, judging myself for not being able to function the way that I think that I should be, or how I couldn't function the way that I could 5 days ago or 2 years ago. And that's all ableist. And catching those thoughts, I'm just building awareness around it and a lack of judgment so that I can just let those thoughts flow. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as how much I talk about it, interact with it with others, it's embedded in everything that I do. So
Okay.
when I'm working with individual employees who are looking to request an accommodation, we talk about how to frame the accommodation request without a deficit focused language. And
Mm-hmm.
that is addressing ableism. We talk about it and how to view their request as not a deficit, not a sign that they are lesser, not a sign that
Yeah.
they aren't good enough. And
Yeah.
it's just a request for something that they should have had anyway. And it just happens to be that they don't have it yet. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, we tap dance around a fine line, right? We have to play up the struggles enough to get the
Yeah.
accommodations and yet keep that focus on strengths so that we don't fall down, get flushed down the depressive toilet, right? Just
Yep. Yep.
spiraling down. And that it's not easy to walk
It's,
that fine line and to get other people to walk it with you.
yes.
Do you have any tricks on that? Tips and tricks for folks?
Well, that's an interesting one because I found that it's a very different fine line depending on where you sit in life. So, for example, what you talked about, you have to highlight the deficits enough to get, kind of taken seriously, but you also need to show your competence enough that they value you and they actually care about helping you.
Yeah.
So, somewhere where I see this, I mean, I see it everywhere, but I'm going to give an example really fast that makes the point I want to make, which is in the workplace. I was talking to a friend once about, I mean, in the medical office. I was talking to a friend once how when I go to a doctor, I dress down. My hair isn't done. I might be in sweats. I try to look as bad as possible so that they believe that I'm not feeling well or that I'm not as, so they don't just automatically dismiss me because I look too competent, I look too capable, I look too high functioning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I go in actually presenting myself worse in appearance. Well, this friend is black and queer. And they said, "You do what?" And then they said, "Well, and I have to do the exact opposite. I dress up. I do my hair.
Mm-hmm.
I highlight my position at work. I have to say I'm a director." And so because then they respect me, they believe me more. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because if I dress up and if I tell them that I'm an author, that I'm successful and well recognized in a certain field, they dismiss my medical needs.
Mm-hmm.
but a different people with different identity pieces can't do that and actually would hurt
Yeah.
them. So it's interesting that you ask what are some tips,
Yeah.
and the tips are going to be different for different people because ableism looks different to different
Mm-hmm.
racial groups. It looks different to different genders. As a woman,
Mm-hmm.
I have to do different things than a man does in the workplace, and not just in general, but around ableism
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, ask people who have similar identity characteristics as you, who
Mm-hmm.
have similar disabilities as you, how they navigate that specifically, or go to somebody like me who has worked with so many different groups and identities
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
I might know the right tips or I'll know who to refer you to, but
Yeah.
I'm afraid to give specific piece of advice around that specific thing because
Sure.
it depends
That
on who
makes
your listener
sense.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially how, that we learn through stories more than we
Yes.
learn reading spreadsheet, right? And that's one reason why I wanted you to share your story so much, because it puts skin on the theory, right? And but by contrast, by looking at contrasts, we can learn so much. And you painted that, right? You dress down, your friend dresses up in order to get
Yes.
similar results, to be heard,
Yes.
to be
Yes.
understood, to be taken seriously. You both
Yes.
have those same core needs, but you have
Yes.
to go about it in very, very different ways. And so I think, the long and short of all of this is that we have to understand what our challenges are and what is helpful around that. And then
Yes.
how can we carry on with the functions of the job that we are employed to do? Do we need workarounds for that?
Yes.
And then your app, oh my, I'm so excited about that.
Thank you. Me too.
So that's going to be so cool. And it launches in a couple weeks.
It does, just a week and a half now.
You must be so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So,
I'm surprised it doesn't already exist because there's so much help for the employer side of things. HR
mm-hmm.
has tools that help them navigate employment law, and not legal
Yeah,
tools, but just little things where it's like, oh, enter up in this information and we'll handle the right taxes. We'll handle the right bonuses
yeah,
that we give them. We'll handle all of these right things
yeah,
that are governed by legal things. And there's nothing for
mm-hmm.
the employee, when the employee is the one who actually has the rights.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's weird that nothing exists for the employee yet. So while I'm
Well, good
starting
for
with
you.
reasonable accommodations, it's going to go to all legal rights.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I am so
Thank you.
excited
Thank
for
you.
your journey. I think with
Me
that
too.
note, though, I want to thank you for coming on Living with FASD. And I think I'm going to air this probably on the weeks that I do, you know, FASD within the broader neurodiverse community, because definitely folks with ADHD and autism and head injuries and cerebral palsy, all different manner of challenges, we can
Yes.
all benefit from what you have to offer. And I'm so grateful that you came to spend the time with me.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was very, very happy to be here and look forward to being connected and communicating
Yeah.
even more.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.